Let's continue. Genesis, jump down to verse 3. And it says, early in the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. The next morning. In fact, it was early the next morning. And so Abraham is taking this journey. He's traveling. And could you imagine what kind of sleepless night that was for Abraham? Knowing that the very next morning he's going to be getting up and he's going to be taking his son to where God had called him to and sacrifice him there. If you've ever flown, especially early in the morning, you have an early morning flight, and maybe you have a 6 o'clock flight, and you have to be there, I don't know, say around an hour and a half early. So you're getting up, if you're flying out of Syracuse, you're getting up anywhere between 2 and 3 a.m. And I've had those flights before, and I'm like, I'm going to go to bed early, I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and it doesn't happen. It's like, I'm like looking at the clock, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11. Waking up every hour because I don't want to miss my flight, and just have an awful night's sleep. Could you imagine how many times Abraham woke up? Did Abraham even sleep? Well, he said he got up the next morning, so he must have slept a little bit. But what kind of night's sleep Abraham must have had, knowing what he was going to have to do the next morning? Abraham trusted God even when he didn't understand. Like, this made no sense. To Abraham, like this made absolutely no sense to him. But Abraham was obedient even when he didn't understand. You see, sometimes we say things like, God, I'll obey you, but I need to understand first. Like, God, you might be asking me to do something, and that's great, but I need a little bit more understanding. Can you, as soon as I understand fully of what you're asking of me and why, and everything that has to do with it, then I will do it. But I just need to understand. And I think that kind of thinking, really, it's almost putting us on like the same level as God. Because we're never going to understand everything. Like, we are never going to understand everything that God asks us to do all the time. And saying, I'm not going to obey unless I fully understand, that's a problem that we need to be willing to follow God. Because the proverb says in Proverbs 3, verses 5 to 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and what? And lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, we've talked about that before, pay attention. All of your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. How many times do we seek understanding before we will be obedient? It's human nature. We want to understand, why am I doing this? So I can put purpose behind, I can kind of have a resolve to go through if I have understanding. But God's word is telling us, actually, don't lean on your own understanding. Submit to me, and I'm going to make your path straight. The fact is we are never going to understand everything that God is asking us to do. But guess what? That doesn't mean that he expects our obedience any less when we don't understand. Just because we don't understand, it doesn't mean God's saying, well, I understand if you don't obey because you don't understand. It's okay, Susie, if you don't listen to me because you don't understand, it's okay. That's not how God works. God expects our obedience whether we understand or not.